tereliminasi. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Berkumpul!
Aneh ya, air laut dan air mata itu beda, tapi rasanya sama. Dunia memeluk lautan dengan segala keindahannya. Itu kalimat terakhir yang masih ada dalam memori chipku.
Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Musuh telah tereliminasi. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
Musuh telah tereliminasi.
Salahku. Sorry. Lindungi tower kita.
Akan mengiringiku.
Musuh telah tereliminasi. Serang! Double kill. Mundur! Ultiku udah siap.
Drone aktif. Memulai operasi untuk mengambil memori chip. Bagi manusia, mencari jati diri adalah bagian dari kehidupan.
Overlord dan Tyrant sudah muncul. Shield Tower sudah hancur. Ultimate belum siap.
Musuh telah tereliminasi.
Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
Tanganku dingin dan kaku, tapi aku masih merasakan kehangatan yang tersimpan dalam chipku.
Ultiku udah siap.
Jika ku melakukannya ini,
Rain
akan mengiringiku.
serang. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Mundur. Berkumpul.
Cir,
Masih ingin menjelajahi.
Mundur. Mundur. Ultimate belum siap.
Dunia memeluk lautan dengan segala keindahannya.
Berkumpul.
Itu kalimat terakhir yang masih ada dalam memori
Enggak
chipku.
ada lawan. Killnya mantap. Double kill. Gokil. Musuh telah tereliminasi. Towermu dihancurkan. Serang!
Ada kode aneh.
Musuh telah tereliminasi.
Ini yang namanya emosi.
Ultiku udah siap.
ya
Bagi manusia, mencari jati diri adalah bagian dari kehidupan.
di Mang Pina bilang kemarin di Arab berapa? Katanya 28.
Double kill.
beda ya Bre ya? Hah? Itu yang mahal.
Ultimate belum siap.
Tadi dua-dua.
Drone aktif.
Timmu berhasil
Aku
menghancurkan
kira,
tower.
kan orang nyangkanya 25, bener gak? Hah?
Ilmunya mantap. Ultimate belum siap.
Apa karena PO kali ya?
Mundur. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
Apa karena PO kali kita itu?
Itu kalimat terakhir yang
Tapi katanya nggak PO juga bisa.
memoriku.
Artinya juga udah.
Legendary. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Double kill. Nice. Shut down. Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower.
Ada kode aneh.
Ultimate
yang
belum
mengusik
siap.
dadaku. Ini ya yang namanya emosi.
Jadi 23. Ya nggak apa-apa lah, bentar lagi. Bener nggak? Hah? Tapi orang-orang order mahal-mahal ya.
Telah tereliminasi. Musuh telah tereliminasi. Ultimate belum siap. Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower. Eliminasi. Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower. Musuh telah tereliminasi.
Jika aku bawa bunga ini, apakah memori hangat akan mengirimiku?
Overload dan Tyrant sudah diperkuat. Kanan maju. Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower. Ultimate belum siap. Berkumpul.
Drone aktif. Memulai operasi untuk mengambil memori chip.
Kamu berhasil mengeliminasi musuh.
Target tereliminasi. Memori chip berhasil diamankan.
Bisa bayar ini aku, pakai ini aku ya. Hah? Itu murah.
Tapi aku masih merasakan kehangatan yang tersimpan dalam
Makanan ini. Makanan iPad ya? Hah? Itu beneran? Itu makanan iPad. iPad. Kita ngambilnya gimana?
Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower.
Kapan periode kelar ya?
Serang! Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower. Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower.
aku.
Kasih Ci.
Ini ya yang namanya emosi.
Ultimate belum siap. Serang!
Sejarah itu
Serang!
Aneh ya,
sejarah.
air laut dan air mata itu beda. Tapi rasanya sama.
Kamu tahu sendiri aku nggak pernah bisa baca tiap. Ini dari 2000.
Rampage! Killing spree!
Bagaimana sudah mencari
Double kill! Mantap! Mundur! Berhasil!
Hari ini wangi banget, guys.
dari dulu? Dunia
Mulu
udah
kita.
seindah ini ya. Arigato, mama.
Kamu berada di farm lane. Giliran tim musuh untuk ban hero. Giliran tim kita untuk ban hero. Giliran tim kita memilih hero. 私は綺麗におしゃれしてる私が大好きだ。強くあろうとする私が大好きだ。私は釘崎野原なんだよ。
Giliran tim kita memilih hero. Lima detik lagi. Selamat datang di Honor of Kings. Terut. Minion musuh akan tiba dalam 5 detik. Semua pasukan maju.
こうなら何しても許されんのかよ。じゃあ何か。逆に恵まれた人間が後ろ指刺されりゃ満足か。
Berkumpul. Executed. Musuh telah tereliminasi.
Cuek banget.
Musuh hilang. Awas kena geng. Berkumpul. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Towermu dihancurkan. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Overlord dan Tiap sudah muncul. Your tower sudah hancur. Balista maju. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
結局助けられる人間なんて限りがあんのよ。かんざし
timnya.
別に隠さなくていいのよ。私だって殺す気でやるし。友なり
Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Tower hancurkan. Musuh double kill. Musuh telah tereliminasi. Musuh triple kill. Musuh telah tereliminasi. Double kill. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
ぶん投げられ慣れてんだよ。
Killing spree. Towermu dihancurkan. Berkumpul. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Berkumpul. Double kill. Towermu dihancurkan. Kamu berhasil mengeliminasi musuh. Killing spree.
不幸なら何しても許されんのかよ。じゃあ何か逆に恵まれた人間が
Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower.
杉崎野原喜べ男子そう言ってんね。
Mundur! Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
私お腹減ると機嫌悪いの知ってた。
Musuh menyerang jungle kita.
勝つしね。
Ngelambak. Aduh.
Eliminasi. Towermu dihancurkan. Musuh nggak ada lawan.
こうなら何しても許されんのかよ。
Musuh rampage.
逆に恵まれた人間が
Awas, tower base kita diserang. Towermu dihancurkan.
Asam! コテンパンにしてやんなよ。
Mundur. Overlord dan Tyrant sudah diperkuat. Sekarang maju.
Sabar, bisa nggak sih ini? Udah di sini.
Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Musuh nggak ada lawan. Kita diserang. Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower. Awas, tower base kita diserang.
私、お腹減ると機嫌悪いの知ってた。
Rekanmu telah tereliminasi. Musuh godlike.
別に隠さなくていいのよ。私だって殺す気でやるし。
Awas, tower base kita diserang. Tower base kita diserang. Towermu dihancurkan. Musuh telah tereliminasi.
助けられる人間なんだ。
Rampage. Mundur! Timmu berhasil menghancurkan tower. Rekanmu telah tereliminasi.
何しても許されんのかよ。じゃあ何か、逆に恵まれた人間が後ろに立ってるのかな。
Tereliminasi. Double kill. Awas, kristal kita diserang. Gak ada lawan. Shut down.
Anjir. Aduh.
Gagal.
Yes.
I think that's a great pick for the side of SE.
People may be biased, but fate isn't. I do not wish to own them, only enjoy their beauty.
A show about to start, now hit the spotlight. There's an electricity, you can feel it in the air. Are you ready? 'Cause I'm ready, let's rock and roll. Look in the mirror, tell yourself it's your time. If we believe in magic, we'll be stars in the sky. You'll be unstoppable when you remember, feel the power in your heart. So go out and let it shine. I'm gonna live my life in the starlight. This rhythm is burning deep inside. Electric, so alive. I'm gonna dance all night in the moonlight. Won't stop until my dreams are light. To the world, I'm gonna touch the sky. Turn it up, the good vibes. Set free the powers inside. Don't stop, the top vibe will be higher than the sun. I'm gonna live my life in the starlight. Won't stop until my dreams are light. To the world, I'm gonna touch the sky. Feel spark in your heart, let the flame ignite. Don't be scared of the stage, it's your time to shine. Press play. Just remember, you the man, yeah, you the man. Anybody disagrees, who cares anyway? We on a rocket ship going up to space, y'all. You on a mission to the stars, looking back now. Turn me up, 'cause I'm coming in loud. I'm gonna walk into the room while I hear this wow. I'm gonna live my life in the starlight. This rhythm is burning deep inside. Electric, so alive. I'm gonna dance all night in the moonlight. Won't stop until my dreams are light. To the world, I'm gonna touch the sky. Turn it up, the good vibes. Set free the powers inside. Don't stop, the top vibe will be higher than the sun. I'm gonna live my life in the starlight. Won't stop until my dreams are light. To the world, I'm gonna touch the sky. Turn it up, the good vibes. Set free the powers inside. Don't stop, the top vibe will be higher than the sun. I'm gonna live my life in the starlight. Won't stop until my dreams are light. To the world, I'm gonna touch the sky.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Honor of Kings Malaysia King League Spring 2025 qualifier. Today you have myself, Blam, and we have some fresh blood on the broadcast desk. It is none other than Xeno Viper. How are we feeling today? Yes? Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the big takeaways from yesterday was definitely Silver Team. Obviously, we saw some cooking going on, taking place there. We had some new picks coming to the gorge, like the Dong Quai. We had Dr. Bian as well, so we're very interested to see those come on the gorge. I'm expecting a little bit more of those flavors today.
Oh, Dr. Bien Farm was something I've not seen in a long time, and I love to see that pop up. And I find the lack of Lian Po's appalling. I want today to be the switch up. All right, everyone who has pretty much won or lost their matches yesterday has been in a 3-1 actually. So there's not been any clean 3-0s. So I'm expecting today to be absolutely insane as well. Yesterday we got qualified teams already that will be for O2 as well as AG. And today we got Silver Team, Enigma, DTE, and of course SEEC, who had a free walkover.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, out of all those 4 teams, even though we're not very familiar with them as a whole, especially SEEC, we don't really know much about them because they were given a free ticket into this lower bracket semifinals. But with DTE Gaming, Enigma, and Silver Team, they're like, we know some things about them, but we don't know everything. And I feel like this is where that starts going to be unfold now, because they're not going to be holding any punches going into this one because the stakes are too high. There's the extra little bit of prize pool and qualifying for MKL, but we are going to be looking at the prize pool now. Obviously, it is a total of $2,500 USD, but your first and second team get 600 USD, team 3 and team 4, which is what these teams are vying for today, is at 400 USD. And then top team 5 to team 8 get that 125 USD. So not only the qualifying to the MKL Spring 2025 is on the line, but a little bit more money in your pocket is definitely what you want leaving today.
Of course, the lion's share would be the beautiful one, right, up at the top there. But honestly, just even getting a little bit of money, playing up and something that's open like this is something we want to commend Honor of Kings for doing, at least for the global scene, to bring up all these like local talents. And so far, for all the tournaments that has been in Southeast Asia per se, Malaysia has always been one of the top contenders. And here we get to witness possibly some of these rising stars that might grace the world stage pretty much later on.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct in that sentiment, right? I mean, the only other champion bar Malaysian teams last year was Season 1 Invitational, and that was VKS from Brazil. So since that point, since Malaysia came into the scene, they've been pretty much dominating it. And obviously, like you said there, like these 2 teams that do qualify today will be going up against some of those champion-rated teams like Black Shrew Esports, Nova Esports. I mean, you have the second ups Team Secret, which I feel like they need to have their Cinderella story this year. Like, they definitely took the blows last year, didn't quite meet that final mark, but I feel like 2025 could be Team Secret's year, but it's not going to be an easy year, I'm saying that.
I would say, yeah, they do have the experience up on, competing in bigger stages, but the real Cinderella story is any of one of these 4 teams that might join the invited teams up there, which, as a reminder, it is Todak, Team Secret, Black Shrew Esports, and Nova, which is your reigning champions from the Season 3 Invitational. So a lot of banger stuff. I said that this is my first time doing Honor of Kings, but I'm coming into it with a bang. So I think there's a lot of things to be anticipated. There's a lot of action to be done, and I'm so happy to be like part of this right now.
Yeah, and I mean, a good thing for you to come into at this point as well is the fact that we now have that global ban pick, which is something that was adopted in KPL in 2018. And for those new tuning in, it is all about that draft. So you can only draft 1 hero per series for your team. So if you go for something like the Orgrin in Game 1, you can pick it once, but then you may still maintain to ban it. So you could really tease your enemy team from having that big power pick like the Orgrin, like the Lung, like Diadea. So it really has changed the sort of drasticness of the esports of Honor of Kings in 2025 compared to last year.
And that's what I actually like, because I've not seen any other games come close to having this sort of format, because you always see these teams want to just go for the best. Yeah, you have bans, sure, why not? But doing this like global ban picks will really force players to exercise their flexibility and kind of just put together comps that we may not even see on the daily, right? So, and sometimes it forces them to have like this, the 4 standard picks and then 1 wild card. Sometimes we see the Agudo coming in, maybe. We haven't seen like Shoyue sometimes, and it just kind of fits into the lineup a little bit. And then Sun Bin, who's kind of had a really good showing yesterday too. So, I don't know. Like I say, when there's something on the table to discuss, this is actually the draft. And I always look forward to the draft, because you can see how all like a good plan that comes together in the end.
Yeah, I mean, Sunbin doesn't get a fair rap. Honestly, I've been a fan of the Sunbin pick in the support role since EWC last year when the Brazilian teams, I believe it was even Loops Esports, picked it up and then definitely got themselves carried through to the knockouts. But it was just like yesterday when it was paired with the Dion Way, it was just unstoppable. Obviously, time lapse is such a great counter, disengage, and engage. But then also pairing up with Dion Way that has that vast movement speed is crazy. So again, I feel like we could see that pairing once more from the likes of Silver Team. But yeah, they're definitely known as a team. They definitely made a fan out of me as a viewer yesterday with their cooking.
All right, yeah. I mean, I think like people tend to misunderstand while we're still on the topic of Sunbin, of course.
Yep.
That's a competitive level support. Like if you're gonna play that in your ranked games, you better be sure that you have a 5-stack because otherwise you're gonna waste those time flux and those time lapses. That little bit of a speed boost can make or break an engagement. So of course, if you guys want to be the best of the best, this is the best place to tune in, right? Find out how these players utilize these heroes on a very high level. Get together a good stack, get your 5, get your 3s, and who knows, one day we would see you on this stage as well.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think the first matchup we will have today is obviously DTE against CEEC. So CEC we don't really know much about, but DTE Gaming, they did obviously go 1-3 to O2 Esports, but it wasn't a stomp for O2 Esports to take DTE Gaming. Like there was definitely some kind of potential there for this team, and I really hope they display this a little bit more against their opponent today.
I actually disagree. I think like certain games, they had certain stomps. Yes, they ended up losing only 1-3, but when DTE was in the driving seat, they were driving. Like they put O2 on a deficit and showed that they had so much potential. So that's why I'm really curious to see how they would do against SCEC. Then again, the beauty about this lower brackets is you don't have to go back up to the upper brackets to fight them. The winner of these also qualifies already, and you just get the secondary prize pool, which is great. So I think that DTE does have potential. The wild card here is definitely SCEC, as we have not seen that yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that's a double-edged blade, right? You said that they don't have to go back up into the upper bracket to fight them, but it's a double elimination. They've had one elimination. This is their this is the last little frontier that they have. So if they do unfortunately fall at this hurdle, DTE Gaming are going to have to wait all the way till like autumn, like fall time, to actually try and qualify for the next sort of global stage. And when I was speaking about stakes earlier in the introduction, that's what I mean, right? Like there is a lot at stake. There is probably no way for these teams that fall today to actually make a qualification onto the international stage if they don't make it through to MKL Spring 2025.
Yeah, it's compared to a lot of other esports when you are actually at a good lead, you're pretty much, your fate is set. But in a game like Honor of Kings, the flip can be scripted. I'm sorry, the script could be flipped, just like a snap of a finger. That we've seen worse comebacks than ever. These the players are definitely very capable. That's why they qualified here in the first place. But bear in mind, there were a bunch more teams up in the initial upper brackets that all boiled down to this final 4 teams that we are playing today. So we have players, we have potential, and we're just storytellers pretty much.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen comebacks, and mentioning comebacks, Season 3 was just full of them. And it weren't like comebacks at like T2 territories or even the higher ground territories. There was some teams that were pretty much wasted all the way down to their crystal and still managed to bring it back. And one team that brings that to mind is like Elevate and Nongshim. So even if these teams do go through to the MKL Spring 2025, they've got to make sure that they basically tenfold their performance going through onto these international stages, because that's the kind of performance you're going to have to try and match as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've just seen some of these great performances back on the Invitational Season 3 as well, which I remembered Pei was just doing that backdoor even though the enemies got the tempers, I guess. See, this is where like my inception into the scene is gonna... I feel like my duty is to make sure these people's stories are told on the global stages like this. And this is just MKL Spring. We're gonna have bigger tournaments coming up as well. We got EWC, potential World Cup as well later. So, and it's very early the start of the year. It's only March, Blam.
Yeah, it's only March, and I feel like it's been such a long journey this far. Since obviously June, we had some qualifiers for KSI 23 for season 3, sorry, and now we're sort of starting to build up the story for these big King Leagues. The first time they're happening on the global stage as well, which is super duper exciting because we don't only just have MKL, we have PKL, we have IKL going on at the same time as well. So there is so many teams, so many new players, so much new blood looking to basically prove themselves against the already Old Testaments of teams.
Well, we can definitely talk so much about these teams as well. Some of the best things to elaborate upon is in game, right? Like how these players execute their hero picks, especially, and of course the tug of war is what makes and breaks the game. And we are finally going into game number 1 of today. It will be DTE versus SEEC in a best of 5.
In a best of 5, and already throwing us off there with a prio ban onto the Doom there. So DTE, we know from obviously the previous day, it was actually QX who was their jungler, but it looks like they're actually having Zero. Whether this is a new player or a sub is going to be yet to be found out, but banning out the Doom is a very interesting one on the prio blue side. They don't want to go against these tanky junglers, but it has been a little bit of a same song and dance. Like, there's been so much kind of like cutting off of these jungle tanks, which has been a huge meta since 2024.
That really depends on what the team wants to fight against, right? Because if you're banning out junglers and clashes, that means you kind of know that those are maybe your weaker lanes that you want to capitalize on your other lanes, right? Whereas you see SEEC, they're banning out supports and farm, which means that they want their farm lanes to actually win. So we got the Mai locked up for DTE already very early on, which you talked about a bit, where you don't see Mai being like the first use phases of the global ban picks. So coming out on game number 1 here, it's going to be interesting for DTE.
Yeah, I mean, she normally does come through, obviously, if she's allowed to come through on that first ban phase. She has normally been sat there, especially within Season 3, but for the MKL qualifiers, it's always been a little bit of a same song and dance, where she's come through in Game 1, not always had the best performance, but yeah, I mean, it's going to come through here for BB. BB, we know, had some fantastic performances on the likes of Yixing, so it's going to be interesting to see how they play the Mai Shiranui this time around. But over to the side of CEEC, we've got the Sakia and we've got the Ata. So again, Ata, great tanky pick, and then Sakia with the Mulberry power is going to be the thing that you need to kind of shut down these high frame heroes like the Mai Shiranui.
Not just shut down, but like those fireflies, they actually track your enemy. And that's gonna chase Mai, and she's pretty squishy. That's been a very, very good addition for Honor of Kings into the competitive scene. I always thought Sakura was pretty viable. And speaking of extra viable, it's actually Ada. I can't believe it. We just saw him like just last night or something. He's a meat shield. Okay, and he's such a sleeper hero. I played in my ranked games, and like 8 out of 10, I win. So I'm glad to see that here. Lady Sun coming out with the main combo, pretty standard for DTE as well, responded by the Heino from SEC.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with the Ata, you're going to be looking at trying to build some kind of like anti-heal and stuff like that to get rid of that passive that he kind of like stacks up as he goes out. But I feel like the Ming here, obviously, Ming, Lady Sun, a tried and tested duo combo. But the fact that you can obviously do the reduction onto the Ata means that hopefully CC on this Lady Sun is going to be able to run down Ata, especially if they manage to get towards the late game. But the Heino, that could be flexed up either into the Clash or into the mid lane. So still, I think that's a great pick for the side of SEEC to actually go for in the middle of their draft, to try and sort of like make DTE think, right, is this a mid pick? Is it Clash? But looking at these bans, they're still going heavy on the farm lane bans. Lung the Ranger as well, 2 huge bans into the farm lane, and over to the side of CEEC, Orgrin, Monkey Beam banned because they don't want any more of those tank jungles coming through. So already we're looking at a fine pool of heroes in the jungle for DTE.
Yeah, we could go for something tank, right? Because Ming is not really considered a tank hero on his own accord, so you want something pretty beefy. And since they banned out their own Dune, they could go for that Musashi that could alleviate some of the heals coming from Sakir as well as Ada. Denwei is actually a pretty good one as well. The chase down is actually what's needed. You gotta remember that the SEEC's lineup is actually very, very mobile. Aside from Zhou, of course. But it's not really settled yet. They could go for this Fate, which we have not seen much success so far.
Yeah, no, Fade's come through once, and I don't think it's actually won a game just so far. But like you were saying there, they definitely need some kind of shutdown onto the likes of the Arta, try and catch those more nimble heroes like the Sakir as well. But also, the Joe Yu coming through here means that obviously that Haino is now going to be cemented up into that Clash lane, and Joe Yu is going to be down into the mid lane. And again, he offers some great sort of minion wave clearing. He can really put some pressure onto your lanes as well, especially if he's left alone. And obviously, with his wind, he can kind of blow back the likes of Dion Wei. So if he tries to go in with Leaping Fury, he can just push them away. So it's going to be all about Zero looking for that prime time to try and jump onto Hao Zi into the mid lane when he knows that ability's been exhausted.
I would say that Joey doesn't have much escape, but truth be told, like his skill 1 is technically it, right? You get to disengage, push the enemy away, things like that. If his positioning is great, he's going to sustain a lot of that damage that SEC really needs, because it's going to take some time for SEC to come online with that damage, especially since they set with that Garo. I haven't been a big fan of her since the nerf. People could still make her work, but that's in the super late game. You're going to need your team to sustain the early part for your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's more so for the poke, isn't it, really? I mean, if you look at DTE's draft there, in terms of trying to get into the back line, you've really sort of relying on Mai Shiranui and the Mayin to do that, because if you don't do that, then you're going to have a Garo that's going to be just literally lamenting you with arrows, using her first ability as well, just to try and get the silence. So there is a little bit of a functionality there with the Garo, but yeah, in terms of what they could have actually gone for into the bot lane, you'd probably be looking at something like a Marco Polo as well, just trying to get a little bit of true damage, which would have been really effective against the Dion Wei. So maybe a bit of a pressure pick, something like seeing that stress was coming through there for the side of CEAC.
Well, drafts is already done, and we finally have game number 1 on its way already. Remember, this is DT versus SEC. Winner qualifies, I guess, to join one of the top 8s there. And yeah, we got best of 5s here for you. And we're going to start off with a very big pause.
Yeah, it looks like we are going to be getting that, though. But yeah, just having a look at this draft, though. So obviously it's a Charlotte, not the Mayin, sorry, that's going to come through there. So again, quite a bit of self-healing is going to come through up into the Clash lane. So 1-to-1 against the Haino. I feel like she's mainly going to be up there. So CM's main pejorative up into the Clash lane is going to be dodging those Scepters of Fate, right? Because you don't want to get hit by those. As soon as they start to stack, they can do some great poke range as well. And it definitely deals a lot of damage to the Clash lane. So you got to be watching out for CM going up against, I believe it is TNZ, into the Clash lane.
Well, Charlotte did receive a buff, though, for a skill 2, so she does get to restore a couple of health a little more. She can get aggressive against the Haino if CM knows her positioning. But, of course, by default, you are putting a range and a melee matchup together. So I just want to see how the Charlotte will just navigate back and forth. We've seen roamings, roaming clashes that comes out, right? Just clear the wave really quickly, catch out some of the jungles, and the Haino is just stuck in lane. But then again, you want to talk about the Scepter of Fate. That it also deals a lot of damage, and he could just relegate it to your jungle to just get some invades. We'll see what happens, but right now we're just getting the pause happening. I think some players having some issues.
Yeah, a bit of a technical pause, but yeah, just not only the Scepters of Fate, though, right? Like, you have the Fate Rewind. His ultimate can be one of those things that you've got to either try and burst down. So, again, for the team that has the Haino, the whole thing and the whole point of the Fate Rewind is maybe to burst and basically rinse a lot of the abilities that are coming through for your opponents, and then you can get out scot-free. Obviously, your health comes back as long as you have your recall point at a certain point. But then at the same time, it could be used as a bit of a deterrent, a bit of a bait and switch. You try and go and push a lane, you try and just focus a lot of the, say for example, the 1v1 against the Charlotte, and then Fate Rewind, go back into middle a bit of the jungle, and then kind of just rotate elsewhere. But yeah, it looks like SEEC has a little bit of network issues. We are just trying to solve those, and we'll get back into this game 1 ASAP.
Well, I think now this is the best time to also put a bit of information for our viewers out there. If you are a Haino Clash, please do not go Magic build. It is horrible. We need that tank. So I actually really like Haino as a Clash lane tank, even though a lot of people don't really execute that well. Partially because His duty as a tank is not really to just front line the damage. You're supposed to blink into the back because your first skill when it transforms, it has a slope, and per hero hit, there's a lot of regen coming up. So when you have those like heavy defense items coming out, like your burning caves, your long nights, whatever it is, you're pretty much a huge beef for your team. And the best part is, if you're a clash laner, because of your Fate Rewind, your tower is almost always going to be up if it ever gets. So this is a really good mechanic. I know we're tunneling too much into Haino here, but let's talk a little bit about DTE again, right? You got Genwei, who he's pretty good in terms of like a tank jungler, only if your team knows how to capitalize against that. So he's going to be the one to soak up much of the damage first, and then Mai has one job, and that's to take out the Garo or the Zhou Yu.
Yeah, she is basically access into the backline, right? Because she's not going to be wanting to have my exhaust all her abilities, all her damage onto the tanks, because at that point they've soaked it up, and then those squishier, more high damaging heroes are definitely going to lay waste to the picks of my Shiranui, especially BB here. Obviously, just trying to take a little bit of the jungle coming through, but right now it's definitely just a bit of scouting in this early game, and right now we see that Sakaki is able to just land that Mulberry Power, just trying to stop the motion of BB.
Yeah, it's a problem because the support is not with Mai, so she's gonna be pretty late in clearing those lanes. But of course, that means that bot lane, well, DTA, we could talk about the initiation, or even the flick, and the flash is forced, and it's still not enough. That burst from CC is absolutely gonna lock him down.
I mean, this is exactly what DTE Gaming want, right? Like, they want that first blood, that extra bit of resources going over to a pick like CC on the Lady Sun is definitely where that is destined to go.
Yeah, I was talking about, actually I did not talk about it. I was anticipating a lane switch, and that's actually what happened. We swapped over the clash with the farm lane here, and Charlotte is the one, initially going out. I'll hold that thought real quick there. Ata's joining the fight. He does have his ghost ship, but I guess the rest of the blue team is just going to be too nimble, so they will back off.
Yeah, you don't want to commit too many ultimates so early into the game, right? Like, especially when you're at a gold deficit, because they're at about 1.6k gold deficit. We do see BB overextending a little bit overzealous there, but it doesn't mean he's going to get punished too much. He was able to actually exhaust the flash off of Shen as well, which is pretty huge.
Some initiation onto BB there, but being nimble as he is, she will just be fine. I guess at this point, just farm up a little bit, because there's so much disengaged, right? Coming here from the SEC side. And, well, as time passes, the, CC grows, and a big Lady Sun, especially in the mid-game phase, is extremely potentially dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially if we start building the likes of, you've got your Axe of Torment, especially late game items like the Daybreaker as well. We'll definitely start to see when that pain comes through. And that's the kind of test of time to see if Tianxi and Aaron will actually be able to stand that damage. But right now, there is so much going on down into the farm lane, already losing their T1 at 3 minutes.
Yeah, I was about to point that out, right? Because he was just going, Garo was just soloing the lane. So now with that lane gone, there's going to be so much more rotations that, Hao and CC can move to sort of get objectives, which is dangerous. The objectives for Tyrants and Overlords coming up in the next 1 minute. And let's see if that will start to change the pace of the early phases of the game. Yeah,
already CC building an Axe of Torment, so the squishier heroes on the side of CEC are going to definitely feel that pain a little bit more. That rolling raid coming through is definitely going to hurt, as well as that ultimate shell. We're seeing, again, more pressure being put onto the farm lane. I mean, T2 at 4 minutes is definitely not what you want to be. That position for SEEC right now is, I'm not envious of that.
I love what SEC is doing. Like I said, we haven't seen them yesterday, but man, they know how to pool their resources to force DT to respond. And speaking of responding, right, that's pretty much what DT has always been. They've never been on the aggressive side. They're always forced to respond to the aggression from SEC. We looked at some initiations coming on here, of course, to the Azure Golem. They really want to secure this, so they got all 4 members of SEC for this.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely don't want to drop this, right? I mean, Arta having that cooldown reduction is going to be huge, and if he doesn't get it, it's definitely going to be a waste for the side of SEC. But the trade there, going over for the Tyrant, for the Azure Golem, yes, I mean, some people do put a high regard onto the Azure Golem, but where DT is positioning in this game, the increased damage is something that SEC doesn't want to face.
Well, if it's increased damage, but you don't have a team fight, that's pretty much going to go to waste. So we're going to need DTE to start getting objectives of some sort. Right now, they're just walking around getting as much farm as they can. But, objectives is really the name of Honor of Kings, right? You get dragons, yeah, where do you move next? You try to get towers. And there's 2 members of DTE right now, and TNG could be in a lot of trouble.
Oh, BB, what happened? What was going on? I mean, Tianchi was there for a moment, and then he was not.
That's what I said, man. Dude, the foreshadowing is huge. He's under tower, and he got obliterated. It's what we call insta-gip, right? So now that's top tower gone as well now for SCEC.
Yeah, very tricky point of the game, right? 5 minutes in, they've lost both their T1s and the side lane. So again, we already see that DTE was already trying to venture into their enemy's jungle. But okay, we see that Aaron's trying to give a worthy attempt here to bay off that T2 takedown, sorry, but it still goes down.
Well, now that's where the dragon buff did come in, right? The second tower gone down in less than 30 seconds, so objective after objective they're coming up, and I'm not gonna be surprised if they could secure the overlords here. Once a few seconds has passed, and they're looking forward to this mid tower. The initiation is in, of course. My ult actually misses there. Security forces to himself to disengage, but the Garo finally gets the last hit onto CM, so a little bit of a mistake there. But SEC right now they will take what they can.
Take what they can, right? But I mean, 5k gold difference is huge, right? The ghost ship being used here to deter them away, but Aaron looking really low. Zero gets the kill.
Oh, the chase down from Danwei looks so strong, and he's not done just yet. Sakir looking trying to get the CC down, and it almost actually takes down How. The Ming stands true, giving the support to CC and making sure they still have some sustenance to take down this T2. I would say DTE is in absolute fantastic spot. They're close to about 7k gold lead, and they're looking to start knocking on the towers of D3.
They've got more Ks in gold than there have been minutes in this match. I mean, that's not where you want to be if you're SEEC, right?
This is the snowball. Oh man, and you know it takes so long for Garo to come online, and if you're losing your towers this quickly, you know the comeback, the window's starting to close here, Glam.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we can't call them out, right? I mean, we were saying in the introduction that Season 3 teams have always come back from that higher ground turret sort of territory, but at that point, the goal needed to be a little bit more similar and familiar between these two teams, and like we keep saying, it's around about 7k, and it's slowly but surely definitely just slipping away in this game 1 for SEEC. They need to get some of those small minor victories coming through, whether it's pickoffs from onto BB, onto CC, they need something.
Yeah, DTE is not letting SEC get their macro plays, right? Just because they are always forcing them on the defense right now. And I'd like to point out that there's not a single member of SEC that can jump the backline aside from Ada. That's not really a backline jump as well. So now you have a Ming just babysitting on the Lady Sun. You can pretty much be sure that Lady Sun's going to be pretty safe all the time. Yeah, we got Joey with those flames, to just deter them from pushing in. But all 3 lanes are highly pressurized at this moment. And the one that can pretty much do a reliable poke is the Hano, which is really much just trying his best to keep DTE out of their base.
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of see where the SEEC's draft's starting to falter here, right? Like, they have little bits of control, but they don't have massive AoE controls, like they're from picks like Yixing, right? That would have been, a World Is My Board would have been great here. But we can see that Housie is trying to just use his flames here just to try and push them away, but it's not enough. DTE have already broke through the defenses here. High ground turrets falling down, farm and clash lane.
Oh, I want to just call this a stomp, but in reality, like, there hasn't been that much kills, like you say. There's been more gold than kills, but objectives-wise, like, DTE has their macro plays down to a T. They've gotten all the objectives, they've gotten certain kills that they require, and SEC, they're trying not to let their members go down, but, you know, you can't really, like, staunch the beating right now because this T3 mid tower is about to fall here.
Yeah, they've got to cauterize the wound somehow, and I mean, they've got flames on the team, they've got Joe Yu, but they haven't got the Hino. He does go down.
Yep, and a fan and rolling ray from Lady Sun comes in, enough to take him down, but hold that thought though. There's a more CCs onto the Ren versus SEEC. Brings down to 7-1, knocking on the crystal, and that's game number 1 done and dusted.
Yeah, what a way to wrap out game number 1, right? BB coming through with that 3 times crucial crowd control, just basically funneling it all into 0 there on the Dion Way. And then just the assault onto the crystal was definitely a very well formulated DTE game in game 1.
Well, that's the power of Maya as well. When you see your enemy groups up, immediately just close your eyes, roll them out. You know, you're gonna lump them all together. You got a Lady Sun with a frag grenade, and it's gonna do a lot of damage. Lady Sun got a farm, and their idea was to make sure that their farm lane succeeded, and that's exactly how their game plan worked.
Yeah, I mean, the proof was in the pudding, right? You could kind of see from that early game that Lady Sun, I mean, chasing down into the far lane just to secure that first blood was just showing how much this means to DTE Gaming and how much they want to actually qualify. So this could be a very brutal best of 5 between these two teams, but SEC, as we saw towards the end there, they tried to do something, but they just lacked control. And looking at these post-game analytics, it shows that, right? Like, the Arta pick just wasn't quite hitting the mark. Sakia just weren't able to freely roam. I mean, you have your boots, homie. You have your support item. Nothing else. That's like really hard to do when you're Sakia.
Right, it's not just Zakir, but like, do you have the follow-up, right? Because you have Garo, yeah, sure, you have Zhou as well, but you look at the rest of like DTE side, every single one of them has an escape. Of course, exception of Hao that's protecting CC. You gotta remember the first blood was onto TNG, who lane swapped at the early start and actually fed up the first blood over to CC. So that's where he just skyrocketed. You know, he's sitting on 4-0 and 2 MVP, obviously. But of course, we cannot downplay SEC. Is this just a throwaway lineup because you're mixing up a bunch of heroes that we don't usually see in highly competitive? So whether it's going to be a brutal best of 5 or brutal awakening for SEC to make a comeback, we're just going to have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with you on that point. The highest value pick that they had in that whole comp was definitely the Sakir, right? Like, we've seen teams shine on this pick, and it offers so much kind of vision, so much control in terms of CC, and even healing as well. So they've only really burned one really big power pick, but it all comes down to DTE actually banning out a lot of those power picks as well, like the Dune, like Orgren, and whatnot. But yeah, over to the side of DTE, they do burn a lot of more kind of like higher value picks. Mai Shiranui, Lady Sun here. We see CC getting that formidable MVP. He had a very much a stellar starting in that game, and it didn't end at any point. He was just kind of rolling raiding through the entire game.
And the best part is when you're rolling raid and no one else can catch you, that's pretty much know when the game is like secured, right? And TNG was 2.8 combat score. That's not what you want to see on a Hano. And it's not to his fault either. It's just that DTE pretty much locked them down into a chokehold that they cannot get out of. And we have to see how game number 2 happens, because if they don't keep up, they might just be eliminated.
Absolutely. I mean, DTE are definitely smiling going into this game too, right? They have their first point on the board. I mean, it was probably more so that they could say against O2 Esports, it took them 3 games to get a point from O2 Esports. But right now, against SEC, again, an underdog that we don't know nothing about, a bit of a wild card, like you said in the intro, not quite actually holding up to the pale of what DTE have had to go up against up into the upper brackets. So we were already seeing some of the limit testing from DTE Gaming, but for SEC, maybe the limit testing is just about to show.
They're just about to spread the vibe from DTE's game yesterday against O2, right? Because O2 did get very decisive early games and kills onto DTE, but then later DTE got shown promise. So is this the same thing right now for SEC? We're just gonna have to see. Right now we haven't seen anyone that really popped off per se. You know, sometimes you have certain players that has did a real playmaking. But no, I think all 5 members of SCCC on game number 1 had issues coming online. We want to see a better draft, I hope. Then again, this is a marathon, as you said, it's not a sprint.
Absolutely, that is one of my go-to lines, as well as Kindo Fu. We do like to make sure that people do know that thanks to the global ban pick, thanks to the best of 5 format as well, it is not going to be a sprint, it's going to be a marathon. And maybe, just maybe, SEEC can just have that battle of endurance. They can just take these high-value picks from the side of ETE game and then maybe just try and figure out what they need to do in this game too, because they still have the likes of the Lady Sun open for themselves. I can imagine that DTE Gaming are going to be banning out the Mai Shiranui going forward, because you don't like to let that lady slip through, and game 1 was definitely evidence of why you don't.
Well, Orgron is open for both teams as well. Both Arlie, Marco Polo, some of these like really big playmaking heroes I like to see. They can be flashy, but that's the reason why they're flashy, because they can make plays, right? Whereas this particular game itself, almost every hero, they just do what they do, aside from Mai, who could just pop out of nowhere and just give you the shock of your life. But everyone in this current lineup just needs to exist. And DTE played it down to a T, I guess. I guess they kind of mixed in Mai as well as Lady Sun as the really core picks, but Charlotte Dienwei not really that tier 1, I say, at this very moment. So since they caught a win off of this, I would say that DTE is still in the driving seat in terms of drafting. They still have a lot of heroes they could be flexing around with.
Yeah, I mean, I do give props over to the picks of like Dion Wei and Charlotte. They have definitely shown and proved themselves in their respective lanes regardless. But like you were saying, if you just sort of like compare it to like a Dune pick or an Orgrin, then yeah, we can kind of see that there is a difference in tiers and kind of a want for these picks, right? So, but the fact that they went for them, we knew that the draft was going to be aggressive, and we knew that the playstyle had to be aggressive. So when we started to see those rolling raids come through, we knew for a fact that that's exactly how DTE Gaming wanted to execute that game one, was just to be a very aggressive force. They may even want to try and get this best of 5 over with a quick 3-0, because honestly, I feel like that was one of the quickest matches we've had in the qualifiers this far.
I think sub 10 minutes, I guess, because it's 9 minutes into the T3 already. And yesterday we had some fairly quick matches as well. So that's shout out to Silver Team, going for that. I really don't think any team in this current bracket or the phase is capable of going down with a 0-3. All right, they've made it this far for a reason. That means they're capable. I just need to know more about these teams in their drafts in order to come up with some sort of like a premonition or some sort of moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we can honestly say for both DTE Gaming and obviously Enigma that they have had the hardest hurdles being up into the upper bracket, right? They've also had to face the lowest lows of falling out of the higher bracket. So now they know in themselves that they've been eliminated once. All these teams have been eliminated once, but more so the fact that DTE Gaming was literally this close to qualifying, but then got beaten by O2 Esports. They're going to be a lot more hungrier, and it just showed in that game one that they are here to stay.
So yeah, SEC dropped a little earlier. I think it's on phase 2, I guess, and then DT only came in phase 3. So SEC has been in the lower brackets a little longer, so they might just get used to it. Whereas DTE, they got the second chance, right? Because when you're in the upper brackets, you do have that saving grace of fail once, second chance. But when you're in lower brackets, you're just fighting for your life.
Fight for your life.
SEC has just needs to I keep saying this because this is the first time we are seeing SEC. We don't really know too much about them. We can only talk about them in their gameplay, whereas we have seen some performance of DTE that shows a little bit of promise, and exactly that's what happened in game number 1. Would they continue rolling it? I don't know. Would they potentially be the first team to even hit a 3-0 out of yesterday? Possibly as well. But regardless,
it's all on the cards. Yeah, it's all on the cards, to be fair. I mean, if we try and make like a comparative comparison, like you can look at Enigma. They fought against SEEC. They lost. Enigma 1-2-0, right? So Enigma and DTE Gaming, in my eyes, are very similar in terms of their player skill and their knowledge within the game. So for me, it could just be like an Enigma versus SEC rematch in a way. So we could be seeing that 3-0 for DTE Gaming, but we can only hope that we do get a few more matches out of SEEC. They did obviously have some network issues at the beginning of game 1. Maybe that kind of throw off their pacing going into that one. So maybe if we go into game 2, there's no issues, we might be seeing a little bit more of cleaner gameplay from them.
Yeah, let's say if the SEC does move forward, right, and then going up against the likes of the winner of Enigma versus Silver Team, that is the match coming up after this. Each team does have its unique, characteristics, because some of them, they love being aggressive, some of them love the control, and you see some teams, going 10 minutes in and it's barely 2 kills, whereas you can see some teams going 5 minutes and it's like, 5-7 all of a sudden. Like, where are these kills coming from? So it's better of like how your hero picks can also match up to the pace. And I would say that coming back to DTE's lineup, DTE had a very good early transitioning into the mid, whereas like SEC were not able to capitalize their picks because some of them are very, very late game, and DTE understood this. They did not allow the late game to happen for SEC.
Yeah, and I mean, like, with the likes of the Garo as well, both Garo and Lady Sun are late-game heroes, so you definitely need to make sure you're giving the farm over, which obviously made sense of those lane swaps, right? I mean, in terms of the level 1, does Garo kind of outpoke the Lady Sun? Absolutely, but if you can start to weave around those first abilities from Garo and just use those rolling raids to perfection, it becomes a lot harder for you to become very defensive. You're kind of almost stuck at your T1 territory, which obviously just makes the point of Garo rotating up into the mid lane, and then Lady Sun going up against Hino there. So we had the likes of CC going up against Tianze, but it didn't quite still hit that pale, right? Like, I feel like Tianze was hit with that first rolling raid, like he was hit with a first punch in a boxing match. He was kind of like, whoa, I'm staggered, like, what's going on here? Like, I didn't expect her to be this aggressive.
That brings up a very good point. Like, when you do these drafts, right, do you understand the matchup is one thing, but like if you potentially could be bullied, you have to have the rest of the team kind of make up for that, right? So if you're going for a Garo, like you're just relying on her range for the kill. I know in the higher ranks, in higher competitive like this, the enemy's not gonna allow that to happen. Just because you have range doesn't mean that you're gonna have to win the game, because your roam's gonna come in and help, right? You could have the jungler coming in at level 2 to help you get an early lead as well. So range doesn't mean everything. So I do question the Garo pick, even though on paper, like I love the Ada, I love the Sakir, I love the Hano, you know what I'm saying? It's just the Garo really threw me off just a little bit. Like you mentioned, even the Marco Polo could have been better, and in hindsight, even a Consort Yu, just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Physical immunity coming through from her second skill, right? And then she has the Oak Bolts with her first ability, so still replicating that same kind of long range that we see from the Garo. So yeah, again, it could have been a good pick. Like I said in the draft, maybe it was a little bit of a stress pick because they kind of knew that the Lung, the D-Ranger, was being taken off as well. And at that point, those kind of like fumbling, what do we go for? And then obviously the Garo got locked in, but it did have some utility. You still have obviously the silence from her first skill as well that's able to lay down, which could be a great kind of like disengage tactic if they really wanted to, if they ever got to that point in the game. But there just wasn't a point in that game where SEEC was able to take a team fight, so they couldn't actually show the potential of that draft, I feel.
Yeah, well, no more add-on for SEC. It's open for DTE. Praise, please. Yeah, kind of want to see that coming in again. But Sakir will be open for DTE as well. So some of these really, really good stuns will still be up for commission, I guess, for DTE. I sincerely do apologize for the delay while you hear us yap in here. Then again, we're just making sure the players have their it's up to up to 11 to make sure that they can play to perfection. Because right now, remember, today is make or break.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything's on the line. You want to make sure you have everything going right for you in terms of whether it be hardware, network. You want to make sure that you're going into these games with as little handicaps as possible, right? And sometimes that can't always be the case. But right now we are trying to make that the case for both of these teams, so it's a bit of a fair footing going onto the Gorge. But after that, game 1, what do you feel like SEEC could bring to game 2 to try and take a win from DTE Gaming? Rather stopping that kind of what we're seeing right now is a foreshadowing 3-0.
That depends on, like I said, the characteristics of their team. Are they the kind that kind of kind of just waste off the first game and see that, okay, now maybe I need to match the pace of DTE and see how it moves on from there? Because DTE has never once been in a responding spot, right? They're always the aggressors. So why not SEC just go for like a very commanding lineup? Just make sure you win your lanes, win your objectives, and see how DTE adapts. Because there's a chance that DTE could always crumble, or we're going to see if DTE can, respond with the same amount of force. It does come down to the draft. It comes down to your, I would say, the rotations. I think that's the most important thing. And what sets the rotations is also heavily dependent on where your roam actually starts.
Like I say, I've got a school of thought that I'm getting into here for the side of DTE Gaming. Maybe we'll see a little bit more of an aggressive jungler come through in this game too. Knowing what they know now from game 1, they're going to probably be potentially going in for like level 1 invades, right? Like they know, like, hey, we had such an easy game. Maybe we could actually take advantage of this. But I think at that point, it's the point of SEEC to make sure that if they do decide to take that approach, that they punish them for it. And right now, game 2 draft is on the way. DTE with the Mai ban and SEEC with the Ali and the Zhang Fei ban. They are not wanting that lady with the umbrella to come through onto the Gorge.
Are they doing exactly what you said? Just pick Mai and just ban it the rest of the game.
That's it. That's literally it. It's like I've casted before, right?
It works, right? But anyway, coming back in, we got Dolia hitting up. Good refreshes. Could see the Sun Tzu's coming in, of course. Lung, however, is snapped up from on DTE side. So at least they do have Infinite Vastus if you want to move on. And the Mayin, you talked about that earlier. Really easy access into the back line. It's really starting to look good for them. But SEC, they get their hands on that Ogren.
Oh, yes, they do get the 2 bans. Obviously, DTE, well, it was actually, DTE banned out the Dharma, I believe it was, on their second ban last game. So we are seeing that being hovered over. So we are going to get Tianchi actually get the Dion Wei pick. And then potentially the Orgrim pick here for Aaron could be huge. I mean, double the Conductor of Souls, right? But the Dolly, I feel like, to me, it could have been paired with like the likes of the Elaine, right? Because right now we're looking at a Lung, we're looking at a potential Lady Chen, so having a bigger access into that backline, I feel like the Elaine may have been a better pick here. The fact that you've now actually got to utilize the Dolia.
I would say it's the lockdown problem, right? Because Lung is still free to roam. Dharma isn't really that reliable for lockdown for now. He's more like a follow-up, I feel. Yeah, we've seen some crazy Dharma plays. That's why they usually get banned most of the time. But since SEC managed to get their hands on this, they might be listening to the broadcast. They say they probably need to go ham. They need lane presence. They need CCs. And so far, it does look good right now for SEC. Whereas DTE, they're going back to cookie cutters. They have really good team fight in the form of Lady Zen. They have good backline snipes from the Mai Yin, and of course escapes and artillery damage from Lung.
Yeah, I mean, the whole process of CM on the Mai Yin, we've seen it with the previous series that they played against O2 Esports, is that CM, you know for a fact, he's going to be a little bit of a stalker on this one. He's going to be that ex-boyfriend that didn't quite take the breakup that well. He's going to be hiding in the bushes, and then basically when there's those lone stranglers like the Dolia, whatever their farm lane is going to be and whatever their mid lane is going to be, she's going to be there to pick up and just basically make sure they don't ever join that team fight. So the Mai Yin could be pretty strong here, but DTE, we need to lock in some kind of support and some kind of jungle.
Kui is a bit of a question mark there. It's either like you do really well with it or not at all, right? But the hooks are something that always has to keep you on your toes, and there's not a lot of like really great escapes right now for SCEC. Like, yeah, Dolia has a jump, Dharma has a dash, but there's a lot of slows and chases coming up from DTE. So I say the Lianpo was a very, very smart ban from SCEC side, because right now what DTE needs is pretty much someone to just be in the thick of it, just join the fray and just soak up damage.
Yeah, I mean, the Lucian is pretty much like a last resort, right? Because we see the likes of the Lian Po's been taken off the board, Zhang Fei as well. And the thing that DTE was really lacking in this Game 2 draft is a tank. So we can imagine we're going to be seeing a tank from the support role and potentially another tank into the jungle, because Dune is available. And again, Dune would have been another great pick for the side of SCEC to pick to actually pair up with the Dolia. We already have a very quick refresh on the Unruly Blade. And having that Celestial Melody means that it just becomes a lot faster. But I am liking the idea of potential Shangguan here into the mid lane. That is 2 finishing strokes coming through and a lot of damage, just focus damage in an area.
I would say, okay, Agudo coming up. You're going to be a happy Blam here. You mean? Maybe? You got 30 seconds.
Hopefully,
to pick. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the mage pick for SCEC. You're hovering onto the gun and more. I'm like, yeah, that's a Mai Yin. That's not going to work because your Guard Her Grave is just going to be cancelled out, right? If Mai Yin is in invisible form. So, not a good idea. But then again, you got Finishing Stroke with Dolia's Refresh, one of the best combinations in the game. And as you said, Dune is still available. You should not... Honestly, I feel... Surprisingly, I like the Menki, though.
Yeah, I mean, Monkey, Musashi as well. Musashi, obviously, with the duel to the death, is going to be able to get onto the Shangguan a lot easier, because once she uses that finishing stroke, you kind of need that kind of honing ultimate from the Musashi that comes through and just kind of lays the smackdown onto the Shangguan. So you can already see here, Lucian is going to be the driving force into these team fights. Obviously, he has within his kit the disruption of the towers as well, so we could be seeing a Lucian maybe trying to be the front of a team fight, but also being the siege force that they need to take these turrets very early in this game too.
I wanted to say that you need someone to get into the thick of it, right? And I said Menki was good, but then again, Musashi was kind of like the good middle ground of those 2 picks. You have Chase, you have Initiation, you have Imperil to kind of stifle the heals coming up from the Ogrun. So you're coming back to regular ranks, man. You see Ogrun, sometimes Musashi is just a better pick. I like DTE's draft here. And for SCEC, I would say this is a much better draft compared to game number 1. That I would dare say they do have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, like you said in the introduction, right, they go for more coulda picks, so they are definitely going for things that are more tried and tested, and they know from game 1 that they were tried, and they were definitely tested, like DTE, who were just running down in the early game. So we know that SCEC definitely don't want to lose this early game, but they do have so much potential, right? Like, as long as they don't allow CC on this lung to activate, those flaming palms coming through could be an issue, but right now we see Zero already trying to take some resources off of the side of SEC and able to do so very effortlessly.
Yeah, we see a lot of these junglers start to do this right now. Level 1 invade for the small camps, and that's actually pretty much damage. Oh, hold there. BB taking a lot of damage. We gotta remember that Dahlia sustain is gonna keep Shangguan up and running just a little while longer. I think for this particular game, it will have to be up to the junglers to see who gets the first initiation. Musashi, of course, a little bit more scary because Duel of the Depth has that devastating range. But you gotta remember that Aaron is gonna be the driving
in the
force
clash
to set up the
though.
front. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that 1v1. I mean, Mine against Dharma lower levels is definitely not the matchup you want to be against. You always want to be Mine in that situation, right? You have obviously the passive healing from her passive. So you can already see that Aaron is going to be trying to focus that top side of the map, right? Trying to give some, a little bit of a leeway for TNJ.
Yeah, but Aaron comes to his rescue just in case things got dicey, but doesn't really need the help. But that's pretty much the power of Mayin. Similar to like a Byron, Mayin is pretty strong on early level 1. That already kind of bullied Dharma out of lane. And speaking of seeing the bottom here, of course, Hao now joins CC again, making sure Lung gets that kind of kill. But the Fang though, I'll talk about that a little bit. Here comes another invade. Aaron just pretty much just gets his neutrals here. He does have to execute though, and he is pretty tanky, so I don't think there's a lot of commitment going to be done on this Ogren.
Yeah, I mean, when you got an Ogre, it's kind of like you got the keys to a very fancy car, right? You've got to make sure that you are making the most out of the Ogre in the early game, and these fast rotations is exactly what SEEC need to do. They can't kind of just take the Ogre and kind of coddle him with the rest of his team. He needs to make sure his name's heard on the Gorge. They need to fear Aaron in this game too, because if they don't, then it just becomes a point of DTE saying, look, they're clearly not comfortable on it. They just wanted to take it away from us. But CC into the farm lane is definitely hurting the Fang, and like you say, you want to talk about the Fang.
And the Fang with the second skill though. Wait, hold there. Some action. The flash gonna be committed. CM dropping very, very low, looking for commit with a whatever. The heal's barely enough though. How's he manages to live? That's a 3-man gang, and first blood going on the way of SCEC.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not very good at maths, but 3-on-1 is definitely the favors you want to be on. You want to be on the team that has 3 people going up against 1, right? I mean, there's not many situations in Honor of Kings, not many heroes you know that could actually take that unfair advantage, but it does definitely give SEEC a little bit of advantage in the gold, which is definitely more that we can say for them compared to game 1.
I think for First Blood is fine, but committing 3 heroes for the kill kind of just opens up the map so much for DTE. But they all congregate up on top just to be afraid there's going to be another initiation coming on. 2 members of SCC made their presence known up at mid. They want to push up here. The Dharma, I mean, looking to see if they can get a response here. He is level 5. He does have those knockups, but they're just going to back off.
Yeah, I feel like obviously using the teleport mechanic is very good strategy here from SEEC, because those kind of leaving CC down in the bot lane, which when you are Ogren and you're just left to get resources, and then when you join a team fight again, it's going to be not what you want on the side of SEEC. Nobody leaves baby in the corner.
Yeah, I'm worried about the Fang though. It takes some time for him to come online. Hold that thought there. Oh, the stuff. He's frozen. He's locked in place. Sakiki down finally. Back to a 1 versus 1. The action might not just be complete yet. Aaron's still looking to get into the thick of it. But the rotation from Tianzi definitely going to look to, well, put some value on the board. Of course, Fang's going to continue his farm. They will do some invades, though, on DTE side. Try to catch onto this Crimson Golem, and it is split. I'm not sure who it went to. I believe it was Aaron, but he is doing in a lot of trouble. He doesn't have Conductor of Soul. He barely survives there, and no, he falls. What a good shot here by Zero, and he will get out scot-free. And we are not done. Is that gonna Shaman coming in? He's gonna back out. Final. Oh lord, the skill 1 barely hits onto him. CC coming in. He's still done.
Oh
it's
no.
Still going on. How looking to drop? SG still survive. Finally drops though. Shit, it's such a scattered team fight. What is going on, Blam?
I mean, they're definitely just trying to set themselves up for a great neutral objective, and now they are down a jungle. They should have just retreated.
Oh god, I have questions and very little answers there. And regardless, we're gonna come back to an almost even scoreline, you know? But I would say that's almost of a win to an SEEC side, I guess. Even though the goal is roughly the same here, but getting value kills, especially, I'm not sure who died there. I believe almost everyone of DTE died. Zero died, which is your jungler. I think Hao also died. I think CM also died.
Yeah, there was definitely few deaths going through, right? I mean, it's definitely put SEEC in the driving seat just for a little while, right? Not in terms of gold, because they are definitely sort of like neutralizing that aspect, but they're able to take the T1 down into the farm lane. I mean, in the early team fight, exhausting 2 ultimates to claim Sakiki was probably not the trade you really want to go for. I mean, yes, taking the Dahlia of a team fight going forward is obviously always going to be a beneficial for you, but to exhaust both the Duel to the Death and the Destructive Deluge is a little bit of an overstep, I feel like, for DTE.
They have to be really careful because I won't say that DT has really a reliable stance per se, aside from the side
Red
of
team has
Lushan.
destroyed
But Lushan
a
has to be in the
tower.
thick of it. So I would say they have pretty good disengage. They have to be really careful because now SEC knows they have to do their aggression. Look at this right now.
No.
Immediately has to disengage because they know there's no follow-up. But who's in the back line? There's Shangguan trying to find a kill onto Lazy Zen, but he misses out. But back onto the mid. Lushan is in, gets sniped out by the Aaron. The execute is good. And this is going to be a 1-for-1 trade so far in terms of like a mid to a roam. That's still a win for DTE side, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win on both sides, right? They've locked down the mid, so a lot of the damage has gone from the side of SEC because they're really relying on both Fang, Shen, and Hochi as well to just try and deal as much damage as possible. But the same for Hao, right? Like, DTE have lost a tank, and I'm already starting to see the kind of, like, the issues that Zero's having on this Musashi. He's kind of committing the duel to the death a little bit too early. And at that point, there's no real follow-up from the side of DTE. Like, if Lushan goes in, most times out of 10, he's faltered. But that whole interaction, they're able to go for the Overlord here, take the tier 1 in the mid lane. So they're definitely starting to get a little bit more presence on the board for the side of DTE. SEC needs to make sure that doesn't slip away.
I think at least they're playing a little better this time around SEC. Credit where credit is due, right? So I don't think that DT can afford to make much of these mistakes either, because when you give them an inch, they might take a mile, and then again, you are going against very, very heavy hitters of a lineup coming from SEC. If the Organ gets farmed, which he is already level 11, they just need towers at this point, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like the Fang here is definitely committing the Blade Flurry to when Musashi goes in, but oh my gosh!
Yeah, BB gets caught out there, and this time right now, Hao is going to get caught in no man's land coming against 2. He's just trying to commit as much as he can because Lung is coming into the fray. The Flaming Palm's not enough to take down the Dharma, and he's forced to use the Infinite Vastus to get out. But is he really getting out though? He is on the chase, but the Doliao kind of regroup with his team, and that just might be it. Getting a kill onto BB and get to disengage, they had to push this lead slowly but surely.
Yeah, I'm going to become dad at this point, and I weren't really impressed with the team fight the DTE had there, right? Like, we had Hao, he was focusing Hoshi, and then CC could have really just made use of that CC, right, and try to close down the Shangguan, but he was focusing either Shen or Sakaki, which at that point, you kind of just like, you got Hao going, hey, I've got a free kill over for you here, buddy, and then he's just like, nah, I'm doing my own thing, dad, leave me alone. And you can kind of see that there was no actual, like, any kind of results from that team fight, and I feel like if Hao and CC just kind of communicate a little bit better together, they could have absolutely wiped out Hoshi.
I agree on the communication breakdown there. That was very scattered for what it's worth, right? So they can't afford to kind of make these mistakes. I would say both teams had their fair share of miscommunications, especially what happened in the early invade, but still, they just might look to take the objectives. Like I said, they need towers, so DTE is going to start to make sure that this push happens.
Oh, Mayin keeping Ogren busy up into the clash lane, though. This could be an issue for the side of SEC. They lose the T2 down into the farm lane, so exactly what CM wanted, he got. He was like, I'm holding you hostage, baby. Zero will be here any moment, and you're going to have to take the walk of shame all the way back to base, and that's exactly what Aaron did there.
Well, this 9 minutes, definitely SEC putting up a bit more of a fight here compared to game number 1, right? It is still not easy because it also takes some time for Shen to come online. I haven't seen Fang, putting too much of an impact on board. Then again, it's one of those farm lanes that has very questionable range, I'd say, early on, even though he does have an escape mechanism. But Fang is that farm lane that could burst you, similar like a Lady Sun. So I don't think that DTE has put himself in a position where Fang could easily just take out one of those squishies pretty quickly. It's more on like this how it's down to how Halsey, that's a mouthful, is able to snipe out in the backline just a little bit. And so far, I don't think there has been a successful combo so far from Halsey.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right in the prospects of Fang, right? Like, he can burst, but at the same time, he's multifaceted, right? Like, he could actually be a great pushing force for the side of SEC, but the fact that they aren't safe enough, like, they don't have the priority in the lane other than the farm lane, they can't have that privilege, right? But right now, they're able to get the Shadow Tyrant and a bit more fights going on, so Kiki go down!
Oh, that's crazy. Mine manages to get out there so far, but so, I know, good, I would say it's a good, tug of war now right now for DTE. They will still get the the dragon in the end there, but the Imperil, of course, is it. The Organ has to back off. You see, I would say that DTE can kind of push them back a little bit, but can they respond though? Because they have to worry about the Lady Zen's Destructive Deluge, which has just come out, by the way. They could actually turn this around.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely focusing the minions into these turrets right against Shangguan, going in with the final stroke. Is it going to be enough onto CC? Not quite, but the Flaming Palms is going to be enough. It takes down Shangguan.
That's exactly what I said, Blam. They're like, DTE is so good in counteracting, right? They don't need to push the aggression, they just need to survive. And with the Liu Shan doing a lot of work, those stances in, Tianzi getting a one-man stun, I believe, was coming from the back end at 0. That's big kills. But the response, not enough from SCEC side. 3 men down, and finally all the towers are looking to fall here. Everyone's so low from DT side. And Infinite Vast is looking to catch in, of course. It's absolutely crazy, and it will force our dear Fang to back on in. He does not have any life left to spare. It all crumbled in the end for SCEC.
Yeah, no, Shen there had so much burden to bear. He had a cross on his back. He could have, if he had it in him, he could have probably tried to take down at least 2 of the side of DT there to stop that push. But not only did he have that on his side, he had to take down the minions as well. So it just felt like a very unfair situation to put Shen in there. But unfortunately for the side of SCEC, they definitely didn't take that game 2. But it was definitely more potential on their side, right? Like that early game, the fast rotations from the Orgrin was definitely what they needed to actually say, like, hey, we can do this as well.
They've got some scattered fight, and that's the problem, I feel, because when you're playing with an Orgrin, you're gonna need to congregate a lot more. So especially once your first 2 towers go down, you're gonna try to start sticking together to start to get your objectives, right? And I think that SEC was still kind of less scattered around to just try to do their own objectives. Fair game, but the Shangguan was an issue because she could not secure any kills. Almost, I'd say there was so much sustain, there was so much backups coming out from DTE that almost nullified the entire reasoning of why you want to pick a Shangguan in the first place, which is an assassin mage.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see the utility of the Shangguan come through, right? Like what we said in the game, Zero was just over-committing the duel to the death onto the Shangguan. But at that point, when you're so far away from your team, that's when Shangguan's potential of damage activates. And I think that was the only death that actually Zero was actually faulted to, was when Shangguan actually was able to pick him off. And he kind of learned from that, but he definitely needed to learn a little bit quicker. But MVP is going to go over to the side of CC here. Those Flaming Palms were definitely hitting. He had the likes of the Starbreaker, the Eternity Blade, the Master Sword come through as well. So he was definitely connecting the punches. But what wasn't connecting for me in that game was definitely Shen on this Feng, because he needed that early game advantage, which Aaron was trying to feed over to him, but then did nothing to it because the pressure from the side of DTE, the roams as well, was just too much for him to keep up.
That, like I said, you know, when it comes down to the draft, are you the aggressor or are you a responder? Because yeah, you got SEC with Dharma, you can bring in, you know, blink in, get some CCs in. But the thing is, I keep saying DTE has such amazing counteracting tools, right? Duel of the Death is great. You know, Lady Sun with the Destructive Deluge, he's almost never dead. He's 0-2 and 7 to be fair, rushing on to the Imperil item as well. And no Flaming Pound be doing damage too. So even though we have some questionable plays coming up from Zero at some point, but like I would say both teams are a little bit messy in terms of team fights for this game number 2, but regardless, the kills were close and the pressure was still a little bit overwhelming for SEC to respond to.
Yeah, I mean, 66k damage overall for CC. That's basically what you want to be expecting from a pick like the Lung, right? So, yes, SEC was able to actually maintain that match a little bit longer because we started to see those shadow variants of the neutral objectives come through as well. But at the same breath, I feel like DTE, like you said there, it was definitely a sloppier game too, and I want to be charitable to SEC. They definitely basically brought their best in this game too. And then for the side of DTE, it was kind of like a little bit of like, oh, we kind of stomped you in game 1, so we're going to actually just basically play around a little bit here and see what we can actually do and see how many mistakes we can make but still punish you for them.
Yeah, credit where credit is due, as they are professional teams in this series, right? But there's no discount to saying this, that almost devolved into a ranked game because the things were being scattered. You know, it's fun to see like things work out and not at the same time, and suddenly like, oh wait, there are kills happening here. I'm just gonna come back in, and oh no, I got a kill. I'm gonna get traded in the meantime. That's exactly what happened into the lower half of the jungle is what happened. So I think that was absolutely hilarious. So a good switch up to what we usually have experienced as serious games. So this one wasn't a hilarious one, but regardless though, the danger is closing in onto SEC because they are one game away from being eliminated.
That's it, right? I mean, match point here could be for DTE Gaming, and from what we've seen in the past 2 games, yes, obviously game 1 was definitely a lot more kind of formulated. There was definitely the aggression on their side, just thanks to their draft. But then game 2 came around, they decided to just have a little bit of fun, right? They just wanted to try and do a little bit of limit testing and be like, hey, look, maybe we can learn something from this. Maybe we can be like, hey, let's see how many mistakes we can get away with, but still take the victory. I mean, they only actually lost their T1 into the farm lane overall, right? So in terms of priority into the Gorge, SEEC definitely didn't have it on their side.
Yeah, if you see pro teams that they move together as objectives, I didn't see that actually in this entire game for both teams per se. It's just more like when the dragons are up or when the minions are up, then yeah, we're in as like a 5-man. But regardless, like we haven't seen those like proactive 5-men or 3-men trying to get towers or stuff, because partially SEC has been scattered in the first place that DTE doesn't really need to group up in the very beginning. So there were a couple of messy team fights that I just want to point out that, you know, the Mayin's job is supposed to get behind and like punch people or kick people off, but that never really happened, and she didn't need to. Why? Because I feel like they sort of baited SEC into being the aggressor, and you know, they in the end responded with like really good kills. Half the time I see that SEC started an initiation, but it ended up going 0-1. Like one of their teammates died, and the rest of DTE is like strong and kicking.
Yeah, I mean, regardless of the team fights, though, I still feel like CM did bring that kind of flavor that we were alluding to in the draft, right? Like, the way that he kind of held Orgrin hostage up into the Clash lane, which just allowed them to take the T2 into the mid lane, was definitely what one of the functions of the Mayin is, right? Just keeping them in place, just be like, hey, you can try and take me down, but 1v1, at that point, when Mayin was just so far ahead in terms of itemization, it just wasn't quite the matchup that Aaron was expecting, I feel like. And definitely, like you said, wasn't many team fights, wasn't many pickoffs into the backline, but she still had that kind of potential, especially with locking down Orgrin.
Well, we haven't talked too much about that Fang in that pick though, so like, what do you feel since now you know that the pace was somewhat similar, but do you think, you know, I haven't seen Fang with the Bladestorm doing much work sometimes, because sometimes Fang, you're gonna use that skill too to get into the back lines to snipe off somebody, right? So do you think that, you know, without the damage supplemented from Fang, that Shangguan would have actually gotten the kills in the end? Because half the time in team fights, I don't even see the Fang.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, but it's all a knock-on effect of that early game, right? Like, if you haven't got the advantage in the lanes, you don't have the privilege to roll in with your second ability. Like, you're constantly having to use that to roll out, so it's being used more of a defensive terms, and you could see it with his ultimate as well, because when we saw Zero commit the duel to the death, Shen was always throwing that Blade Fury down as well, just so that when he was actually trying to, like, get himself out of that team fight and get him out of the distance and the trouble that duel to the death got him into, he would then have to get beaten up by this Blade Fury. So overall, he was taking the punches from Shen on the Fang. But yeah, like you said, it wasn't quite as effective as it should be. But again, like I said, it's that knock-on effect that happens when you don't have that early game lead.
Not just early game, but I also want to give a shout out to the Liu Shan there, because half the time when he's taking it for a spin, I expected him to have died, but like he always edges off with like a fraction of his health and is still alive, so his team knows how to back him off. He knows how to be in the thick of it just to soak off some of that damage. Like sometimes you said, right, Liu Shan could be like kind of scraping a little bit on the bottom of the barrel in terms of like someone who is tanky, but do not underestimate Liu Shan. Partially because like he can dive towers, right? He can regenerate health by destroying towers, and at the same time he has one of the best, most reliable stunts in the game, which I feel like that's kind of the crowd control that DTE needed to kind of disengage off SEC sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we said, in the ban phase, they got rid of the Lian Po, they got rid of the Zhongfei, they got rid of the Motsu. So again, Motsu pairing very nicely with Leung, thanks to the Cannon Blasters to be able to set up those great sort of like flaming palms, able to lock down the likes of the Shangguan as well. So it was definitely, like I said, scraping the bottom of the barrel, sorry, for in terms of exactly. We've both been trying to flip the script and script the flipped.
Here we go.
In this one. But yeah, again, they just are going for some of those kind of like lower value picks, but they're still making them work because there is a utility to the Liu Shan, right? I mean, we saw some of the disruptions coming through his passive. Every time he uses his skill and hits a turret, he disrupts it. So it just makes that siege mechanic just a little bit faster for the side of DTE Gaming.
So, you know, the interesting thing right now is that DTE has exhausted two of the best farm laners in the game already, which is Lady Sun as well as Lung. So that leaves Arlie open. You could leave Consort as well as Marco Polo. And right now, I don't think SCEC has any read on DTE on what to ban, right? Yeah, you could continue banning Arlie to the rest of the game, but like we've seen Consort with some level of success, I guess. They could also definitely, you know, get their hands onto the Dr. Bien. That's what we've seen yesterday. It could happen too. Whereas on SCEC side, they've lost with heavy hitters, right? Ogren is gone, Dahlia is gone, Sakir is gone. I don't know, man. Doors are open for SCEC for sure, but as I mentioned, this could be their last game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a statement piece, right? The fact that they went for the Orgrin, DTE was like, okay, we'll let you go for the Orgrin, that's fine, but let's see what you can do with it. And to be honest, in the early game, Aaron actually had a bit of potential going through, because like I was stating in that game too, is like, when you have the Orgrin, you want to be making sure that you're making your name heard on the Gorge and those fast rotations, putting pressures into those side lanes, which we saw when the Mayim was trying to make advantage of the Dharma up into the Clash lane. We saw Aaron being very prevalent up there to try and give that 2v1 advantage over to Dharma, because he was definitely struggling. And then we could say the same down into the farm lane. He was definitely giving his sort of his presence over into the side lanes, which is exactly what he needed to do, because if he just played a passive Orgrin and just tried to like build up the resources and then join the team fight, I feel like the T2s would have gone a lot faster. Like, there's no stopping DTE when they're definitely in the driver's seat.
So do you want to just come back to basics? Like, just pick lanes, pick heroes that wins you the lanes in terms of matchup. Because I know for professional teams, that's usually not what you're aiming for. You're aiming for like an overall draft, right? How the whole picture comes together in terms of team fight. But so far, like SCEC, if you were to really ask me, I don't think they've been winning their lanes well per se. Like, of course, credit where credit is due with their rotations from the roam or the clash team to help things out. But, you know, do we really just want to come down to basics? If you can't win the laning phase, how could you transition into the mid-game phase?
Well, again, that's it. I mean, the draft's one half of it, so that's the one part of the battle that you have to kind of face, but then going into the game, you have to execute it, and DTE know how to kind of stop the execution of, like, the likes of the big Orgrin picks, the Shangguan as well, just putting the pressure onto them, right? Like, there was definitely a reality, a timeline where SCEC could have won that game. They would have just maintained the pressure into these side lanes. Orgrin would have picked up a few kills. He would have gone in with the Blazing Cape as well as the Eye of the Phoenix, two very big core items for this pick in terms of HP regen. But there was just no kind of like initiation from Aaron in my eyes. Like, we didn't see any kind of path of passings leading into those huge conductors of souls, that big ultimate that Orgrin's known for, right? Like, there was just no use of it. It just kind of felt like he disabled his ultimate bottle.
Well, there is one thing to talk about, and I really want to emphasize this, especially if you pick Orgrins in your ranked games or competitive. You want to make sure you have your follow-ups. And if you look at the lineup from SCEC, they had Dahlia, they had Dharma, they had Fang, and they have Shangguan. In terms of like consistent damage, no one is able to do anything besides from the Blade Storm from Fang, right? Because you have Orgrin that's supposed to be the meat shield, taking out all the damage. When everyone if DTE converges onto the Orgrin, there's not a lot of damage coming up from SCEC side, so that's a big concern. I feel like they've moved a little more towards like, you know, holding that fort, right, as a castle, because you got Dharma that can tank it up, you got Dahlia for the heals. But then when you try to flip it over and become an initiation though, there's no follow-ups. Yeah, you got Shangguan, but that's not reliable damage.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you were saying in the draft, right? Like, they wait for cookie cutter picks, right? Like the Dharma, the Orgrin, the Dahlia, very big picks. But if they just locked in something like a Lu Bang, like have a second tank and have that battlefield command, it would have given the Orgrin such great presence. But it's all down to, like I said, that the draft is the first part of the battle, and if you don't get your first two bans fixed, it's going to be harder for you to actually have that freedom to lock in stuff like the Lu Bang, because again, they only took the Dharma and the Orgrin off the table because they knew they kind of had to, because the bans just they focused on certain two bans rather than taking those big picks out, and that's kind of like the falter of SCEC there, and that's where your knowledge starts to show when you're in these games.
Well, I just want to see them really putting up or concocting an actual plan for game number 3, because it could still be, running full best of 5. We're going to give them that benefit of the doubt, right? While we're waiting for the players, which I believe we are seeing a potential player swap, so that's why we are a little bit on the delayed side. But I really appreciate you guys joining us, especially for you people who've been watching us since day number 1. This is only the qualifiers. We have the groups and we have finals all stretching all the way from May to June, and it's going to be a lot of actions. And right now we're just going to see who will be joining the likes up onto the to those who's already qualified, right? We got Todak, we got Secret, BSC, Nova, and of course your 2 qualified ones from this qualifier, which was going to be O2 as well as AGG.
Yeah, AG Global coming through. I mean, we can speak about AG a little bit there. They definitely have something to prove going into the MKL Spring 2025, right? Like, going into Season 3, everyone was fearful from them because of the qualified performance they had to get there. They were taking the blows from Blackshrew Esports, Team Secret, and even almost beat Team Nova to get the top seed of the Season 3 Invitational. But then when they actually got into the Season 3 Invitational, yes, they kind of took down Alpha 7, but they definitely struggled against Team Vitality. And then going into the knockout stages, they fell short with the actual draw, right? They were going up against Malaysia's top seed against Malaysia's second seed, so they definitely fell at the first hurdle. So I feel like this is definitely something for AG Global to prove going into the MKL, because they definitely want to be getting into that big stage, which is obviously EWC and KWC, to get those kind of club points for their organization as well.
Not just points, but also, of course, the prize pool wise. Even though they fell, I think they fell 0-4 against Nova, but all things considered, they lost to the champions in the end. So Malaysian pride, we got that settled. But here we have more Malaysian up and coming talents, which is SCEC and DTE, still trying to fight a spot to join the top 6 already that already qualified.
Yeah, already qualified. We're seeing a very familiar band from the side of SCEC. They're definitely trying to make sure that DTE doesn't get that kind of prio support band that they're looking for, and Diadea was probably going to be on my mind as that second band, right? Like, they don't want to give over how such a high potential pick into support lane, but it does mean that something like the Sakia could come through here, right? Like, CEC have already picked it, so prio blue side, that's not going to be their case. They're probably going to lock in something like the Lung here, but over to the side of DTE, they have that counter pick, that those 2 picks on red side, so Sakia could be on the cards for this game 3.
I like the Dune band coming from DTE. They know that SCEC has already exhausted a lot of high value Clash lane picks, or jungler for that matter, so really flexible band there. Diadea has not seen the light of day today. She's just gone. Sayonara, see you next time. And now Arlie gets to slip past the band phase.
Yeah, they kind of have to take this away from DTE, right? Because again, Ali's available, but they were you could see what DTE was trying, right? There was like, take the Lung, go on, take the Lung, so we can get the Ali, and then SCEC was like, hang on. The Ali's not banned. Let's take it so they can't have it. And that's exactly what they've done there. So a little bit of kind of like mind games going on here within this draft of Game 3. But yeah, maybe getting answered here by both the Princess Frost. A little bit of a weird one going into this one, because Princess Frost not normally like the prio red side pick. They take the Liempo from the side of DTE. So already we're seeing a strong draft here from SCEC, I feel.
Is DTE that comfortable to go with non-prio picks so that the last 3 picks are a response to SCEC? Because their second pick, you see? So they can always respond to what SCE is going for. And mind you, SCEC was also blue team, and right now they're also blue team as well. Was this on purpose? I don't know. But DTE can definitely afford to go for those respawn picks rather than picking up high priority picks right now.
Yeah, the Diren Jet makes sense here, right? Obviously, the Imperial Order, just actually using that to get that damage reduction onto the likes of the Liempo and even the Lu Bang, right? So you're already seeing the motive come through for SCEC here, as they have a great front line. It's all about protecting Shen on this Ali, but we do have some great lockdown onto the side of DTE. We do obviously have the suppression from Liang. We have the force field suppression there. We also have the winter is here as well. So again, great AoE, slow coming through. So there is answers to this Ali, but I feel like they need to definitely flesh it out on the side of SCEC with these last 2 picks.
Yeah, I was wondering how long it would take for a Liang to come up because his ultimate power word control is definitely one of the most highly rated skills in the game. Of course, aside from like Don Huang, I think. I think Liang is the longest CC if I'm not mistaken, which is 2.4 seconds. So that's going to be enough to collapse onto Arlie if he decides to go out of position. So Arlie's got to watch a step. And right now we're missing some of these important mid lanes, and they will take out Yi Xing and Lady Zhen from DT's side, but they still have Angela available, by the way.
Angela's still available. I mean, it would be a good pick going into 2 tanks, right? She is the resident anti-tank mage, but we did see this getting flirted with in the first pick, the net set coming through there, but not quite thinking of that one. I'm not too sure what they're going to be needing up into the Baron lane here, the Clash lane here, sorry, because they have the Lu Bang, so they definitely need something that's going to pack a punch, I feel, but they're also lacking a front line on the side of DTE, so they definitely need to get a jungle somewhere, and it's probably going to be like Monkey in the jungle, maybe, because Dune's been taken off, Orgren's been taken off as well.
That's a very good point, though. The Fuzi is a viable pick, I say. He can do his own thing. He forces rotations from SCC to deal against you, and he's a late game powerhouse because of 50% damage reduction from his skill 2. So that's pretty good. Oh, I saw the hover onto She. I love this pick, by the way. I think She has been super underrated. Her Silky Beauty, so coupled with Soul Focus, can really melt down some of these members coming from DTE side.
Yeah, I mean, she's all about control, right? So She is just fantastic in terms of control. They kind of lack in the control on the side of SEEC. I mean, yes, they have the Tremor Smash from Lian Po, the great AoE damage and CC, but other than that, they don't have much control. So maybe they're going for more of a burst team comp here. I feel like the Ganon Mo, they've got the burst from the Arlie. They probably need a little bit more damage, but looking over to the side of DTE, they don't really have a tank, so going for more control over damage, I think, is probably the good call here for SEEC.
Oh, they're going for the Assassin comp. I actually really like this.